Marcus wiped the grease from his hands with an old rag as he looked up at the massive alien craft that had crash-landed in the scrapyard behind his garage. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen before, with smooth curves and a metallic surface that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. Most people would have called the authorities immediately, but Marcus had always been curious about how things worked. The 28-year-old mechanic had been fixing engines since he was 12 years old. His father had owned this garage before him, and his grandfather before that. 3 generations of grease-stained hands and mechanical knowledge had led to this moment. While other people ran away from the unknown, Marcus walked toward it with a toolbox in hand. The alien ship was about the size of a small house, sitting at an odd angle where it had crashed through his back fence. Steam rose from various points on its hull, and Marcus could hear strange humming sounds coming from inside. He had watched it fall from the sky 3 hours ago, a streak of fire against the morning sky that ended with a thunderous crash in his backyard. Marcus circled the ship slowly, looking for some kind of entrance. The surface was completely smooth except for what looked like battle damage along one side. Deep gouges and scorch marks told a story of conflict. Whatever this thing was, it had been in a fight before it came to Earth. After 20 minutes of searching, Marcus found a section of the hull that was cracked open. The gap was just wide enough for him to squeeze through if he was careful. He grabbed his flashlight and his basic toolkit, then climbed inside. The interior of the ship was dark except for the occasional flicker of lights along the walls. The air smelled strange, like ozone after a lightning strike mixed with something metallic. Marcus moved carefully through what appeared to be a corridor, his flashlight beam revealing walls covered in symbols he could not read. The corridor opened into a larger chamber, and Marcus stopped in amazement. In the center of the room stood a figure that was clearly not human. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with 4 arms and skin that looked like it was made of living metal. The being was motionless, connected to the walls by dozens of cables and tubes. Marcus approached slowly. The alien's eyes were closed, and its chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. It was alive, but obviously unconscious or in some kind of sleep state. The cables attached to its body pulsed with soft light, and Marcus could hear the hum of machinery all around the chamber. He spent the next hour exploring the ship, trying to understand its layout and purpose. There were rooms filled with equipment he could not identify, but his mechanical instincts told him that much of it was damaged. Sparks flew from broken panels, and several areas showed signs of fire damage that had been contained by some kind of automatic system. Marcus returned to the chamber with the alien figure. He studied the cables and connections, noting how they linked the being to various systems throughout the ship. It reminded him of a car's electrical system, but far more complex. The alien seemed to be connected to everything, as if it was the ship's central processing unit. One of the larger cables had been severed, its end sparking weakly against the floor. Marcus examined it carefully with his flashlight. The cable was thick as his wrist and contained hundreds of smaller wires, each one a different color. Some kind of fluid leaked from the broken end, staining the floor beneath it. Marcus had repaired thousands of electrical systems in his career. Cars, trucks, boats, farm equipment, even industrial machinery. The principles were always the same, even if the specifics varied. Power had to flow from one point to another, and when that flow was interrupted, things stopped working. He went back to his garage and returned with his electrical testing equipment and a selection of tools. Working by flashlight, Marcus began to trace the damaged cable back to its source. It led to a panel covered in symbols, but the layout was logical enough. Input on one side, output on the other, with what looked like processing units in between. The repair took him 4 hours. Marcus had to splice dozens of individual wires, matching colors and testing connections as he went. The alien's biology seemed to interface directly with the ship's systems, something that should have been impossible but clearly worked. He used waterproof connectors and heat shrink tubing, the same techniques he would use on a boat's electrical system. When Marcus finally reconnected the main cable, the change was immediate. Lights throughout the chamber grew brighter, and the humming sound increased in pitch. The alien's breathing became deeper, and its metallic skin began to show more color variations. Marcus stepped back and waited. He had no idea what he had just repaired, but it was definitely working again. The alien's eyes opened slowly, revealing irises that swirled with the same shifting colors as the ship's hull. The being looked around the chamber, then focused on Marcus. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Marcus stood frozen, suddenly aware that he was alone with an alien being that could probably kill him without effort. The alien's forearms flexed as it tested its connections to the ship, and Marcus could see intelligence and awareness in those strange eyes. The alien spoke, its voice like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder. Marcus could not understand the words, but the tone seemed questioning rather than threatening. The being gestured toward the repaired cable, then looked back at Marcus. Marcus pointed to himself and said slowly, "Marcus, I fixed your ship." He had no idea if the alien could understand him, but he had to try. The alien tilted its head, studying Marcus with obvious curiosity. It spoke again, and this time Marcus thought he heard something like gratitude in its voice. The being's skin shifted through several color patterns, and the lights in the chamber pulsed in response. Marcus realized that he had just made first contact with an alien species. Not the government, not the military, not some team of scientists, just a small-town mechanic who saw something broken and decided to fix it. The magnitude of the moment was starting to sink in when alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The alarms were deafening inside the alien ship. Red lights flashed along the walls, and Marcus could feel vibrations through the floor as various systems activated. The alien being, now fully awake, moved with surprising grace despite the cable still connected to its body. Its forearms worked rapidly across control panels that materialized from the walls at its touch. Marcus pressed his hands to his ears, trying to block out the noise. The alien noticed his discomfort and touched something on the nearest panel. The alarms quieted to a manageable level, though warning lights continued to flash throughout the chamber. The alien pointed upward and spoke urgently in its musical language. Marcus did not need a translation to understand the meaning. Something was coming, and it was not friendly. Through the ship's damaged hull, Marcus could hear the distant sound of aircraft approaching. Military jets, by the sound of them, probably scrambled from the nearest airbase. He had wondered how long it would take for someone to notice a crashed alien ship, and apparently the answer was about 4 hours. The alien moved to what appeared to be a viewing screen built into the wall. The surface flickered to life, showing an aerial view of Marcus's garage and the surrounding area. 3 military helicopters were approaching from the east, while 2 fighter jets circled at a higher altitude. Ground vehicles were visible on the main road heading toward the garage. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He was about to be in the middle of an incident that would change his life forever. The alien looked at him and spoke again, its tone urgent but not panicked. The being seemed to be asking him something, but Marcus had no idea what. The alien gestured toward the repaired cable, then toward Marcus, then toward the approaching aircraft. It repeated the sequence several times, and Marcus began to understand. The alien was grateful for his help and was concerned about what the humans would do to both of them. Marcus held up his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture for wait and headed toward the ship's entrance. He needed to see what was happening outside before making any decisions. The alien called after him but did not try to stop him. Outside the ship, Marcus could see the helicopters were less than a mile away. Military vehicles were pulling into his parking lot, and soldiers were taking positions around his garage. Marcus realized that his simple life as a small-town mechanic was about to end one way or another. He went back inside the ship and found the alien studying him intently. The being had disconnected some of the cables from its body and seemed more mobile now. Marcus pointed to himself, then to the outside, then made a talking gesture with his hand. The alien understood immediately. Marcus walked out of the ship with his hands raised, hoping that the soldiers would not shoot first and ask questions later. The lead helicopter was landing in his parking lot, kicking up dust and debris. Soldiers in full combat gear were spreading out around the property, their weapons ready but not yet aimed at him. A man in an officer's uniform approached Marcus, flanked by 2 soldiers. "Sir, I'm Colonel Harrison with the Air Force. We need you to step away from that craft immediately." Marcus nodded and walked toward them slowly. "My name is Marcus Webb. I own this garage. The ship crashed here this morning. Have you been inside the craft?" Colonel Harrison asked, his eyes never leaving Marcus's face. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then decided on honesty. "Yes, sir. There's someone inside. Someone who needed help." The colonel's expression sharpened. "Someone? What do you mean?" "The pilot, I guess. They were unconscious when I found them. Their ship was damaged, so I fixed what I could." Marcus tried to keep his voice calm and matter of fact. Colonel Harrison spoke into his radio, calling for additional personnel and equipment. Marcus could see more vehicles arriving, including what looked like scientific equipment. This was becoming a major operation very quickly. "Sir, I need you to tell me exactly what you found inside that craft," the colonel said. "And I need you to understand that this is now a matter of national security." Marcus described the alien being and the repairs he had made, keeping his explanation simple and factual. The colonel listened without interrupting, but Marcus could see disbelief and concern growing in the man's eyes. "You're telling me you repaired an alien spacecraft with tools from your garage?" Colonel Harrison asked. "I repaired some damaged cables," Marcus corrected. "Same principles as any electrical system, just more complex." Before the colonel could respond, the ground began to vibrate. The alien ship was powering up, its hull beginning to glow with internal light. The soldiers raised their weapons instinctively, and Marcus found himself caught between two forces he could not control. The ship's entrance dilated open, and the alien being appeared. It moved slowly, clearly showing that it was not armed or threatening. The being was even more impressive in daylight, its metallic skin reflecting the sun in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The alien spoke, its voice carrying clearly across the distance. Though Marcus could not understand the words, the tone was formal and diplomatic. The being was trying to communicate with the human military forces. "Tell it to power down its weapons systems immediately," Colonel Harrison ordered Marcus. Marcus looked at the colonel in confusion. "I don't speak their language, sir, and I don't think this is a warship." The alien seemed to understand the tension in the situation. It raised all four of its arms in what was clearly a peaceful gesture, then touched something on its wrist. A holographic display appeared in the air between the alien and the human forces. The hologram showed star charts and what appeared to be battle scenes. Ships that looked similar to the crashed vessel were fighting against other craft that were sleek and predatory. The alien was showing them a war, and Marcus realized that this being was not an invader but a refugee. The alien pointed to the hologram, then to itself, then to the damaged ship. It was trying to explain its situation, but the language barrier made complex communication impossible. The being looked directly at Marcus and spoke again, its tone questioning. Marcus stepped forward despite the colonel's sharp command to stay back. The alien had trusted him enough to let him repair its ship. Now it seemed to be asking for his help again, but this time with something much more important than damaged cables. The alien touched its wrist device again, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed Earth, with several of the predatory ships approaching from deep space. The message was clear. The war that the alien was fleeing was coming to Earth. Colonel Harrison was speaking rapidly into his radio, calling for linguists and xenobiologists. The situation was escalating beyond a simple first contact scenario. Marcus realized that he had become the bridge between two species at a moment that could determine the future of both worlds. The alien looked at Marcus and spoke one word that sounded almost human. "Choose." The word choose hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus stared at the alien being, trying to understand what decision he was being asked to make. The holographic display still showed the approaching enemy ships, their estimated arrival time counting down in symbols that somehow conveyed urgency without translation. Colonel Harrison stepped closer to Marcus, his voice low and tense. "What did it just say to you?" "It said choose," Marcus replied, his eyes still locked on the alien. "I think it's asking me to make some kind of decision." The alien touched its wrist device again and the hologram shifted to show Marcus himself. The image rotated slowly, highlighting the repairs he had made to the ship's systems. Then the display split, showing two possible futures. In one, Marcus walked away with the military forces, leaving the alien alone. In the other, Marcus remained with the alien, and together they worked on something that looked like preparation for battle. Marcus felt the weight of the moment. This was not just about first contact anymore. The alien was offering him a choice that would affect not just his own life, but possibly the survival of his entire planet. "Colonel," Marcus said slowly, "I think this being is some kind of guardian or protector. The ships coming toward Earth are enemies, not allies." Colonel Harrison was speaking rapidly into his radio, but Marcus could tell that the military response was going to be slow and bureaucratic. By the time the government decided how to respond, those enemy ships would already be here. The alien stepped forward and extended one of its four hands toward Marcus. The gesture was clearly an invitation, but an invitation to what? Marcus looked at the outstretched hand, then at the military forces surrounding them, then back at the holographic countdown that showed less than 6 hours until the enemy arrived. Marcus had spent his entire life fixing things that were broken. Cars, trucks, farm equipment, anything with moving parts that had stopped moving. He had never walked away from something that needed repair, and he was not about to start now, especially when the thing that needed fixing might be Earth's only defense against an alien invasion. Marcus walked forward and grasped the alien's extended hand. The moment their skin touched, Marcus felt a shock like electricity, but instead of pain, there was suddenly understanding. Images flooded his mind. The alien's name was Zephyr, and it was indeed a guardian, one of the last of its kind. The ships approaching Earth belonged to a species called the Devourers, and they had already consumed dozens of worlds. The mental connection lasted only seconds, but when it ended, Marcus could understand Zephyr's language as clearly as English. The alien's voice in his mind was warm and grateful. "You have chosen to stand with me against the darkness," Zephyr said, the words now comprehensible. "But know that this choice cannot be undone. Once you become my partner, your life will never be the same." Marcus looked back at Colonel Harrison, who was watching the exchange with obvious alarm. "Colonel, I need you to listen to me very carefully. This being is here to protect Earth from an invasion that will begin in less than 6 hours. If we don't help it repair and upgrade its ship, everyone on this planet is going to die." "That's not your decision to make, civilian," Colonel Harrison replied sharply. "Step away from the alien immediately." Zephyr spoke aloud for the benefit of the humans, its voice now perfectly clear to Marcus but still incomprehensible to the others. "The Guardian Bond has been offered and accepted. Marcus Webb is now under my protection as I am under his. Any attempt to separate us will result in the failure of Earth's defense." Marcus translated Zephyr's words, and he could see the conflict in Colonel Harrison's eyes. The man was trained to handle military threats, not diplomatic situations involving alien refugees and impending invasions. "Even if what you're saying is true," the colonel said, "how do we know we can trust this alien? How do we know this isn't some kind of invasion strategy?" Zephyr touched its wrist device again, and the holographic display expanded to show the galaxy. Red dots marked the worlds that had been consumed by the Devourers, while blue dots showed worlds protected by the Guardians. There were far more red dots than blue ones, and the pattern was clear. The Devourers were winning their war against the Guardians. "The Guardians are an ancient peacekeeping force," Marcus explained, as the knowledge flowed through his bond with Zephyr. "They've been fighting the Devourers for thousands of years, but they're losing. Zephyr came to Earth because our planet has something the Devourers want and something the Guardians need." "What do they want?" Colonel Harrison asked. Marcus looked at Zephyr, who nodded encouragingly. "They want our creativity. The Devourers consume technology and knowledge, but they can't create anything new. Humans are one of the few species that can innovate and adapt quickly enough to surprise them. That's why Zephyr chose me specifically." "Because you're a mechanic?" the colonel asked skeptically. "Because I can fix things that shouldn't be fixable," Marcus replied. "Because I look at broken systems and see possibilities instead of limitations. Zephyr's ship isn't just damaged, it's incomplete. It was designed to work with a human partner, someone who could provide the creative spark that Guardian technology needs to reach its full potential." Zephyr walked toward its ship, and Marcus followed automatically. The bond between them was growing stronger, and Marcus could feel the alien's urgency as if it were his own. They had 6 hours to transform a damaged scout ship into something capable of defending an entire planet. "Colonel," Marcus called over his shoulder, "you can either help us or get out of our way, but don't try to stop us. If those enemy ships arrive and we're not ready, there won't be anything left to protect." Inside the ship, Zephyr led Marcus to a chamber he had not seen during his initial exploration. The room was filled with what looked like mechanical components, but they were unlike any technology Marcus had ever encountered. The parts seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, responding to Zephyr's touch and intentions. "This is the fabrication chamber," Zephyr explained. "Guardian ships are grown rather than built, shaped by the pilot's will and the partner's creativity. Show me how humans would defend their world, and I will show you how Guardians make such dreams reality." Marcus looked around the chamber, his mind racing with possibilities. He thought about every science fiction movie he had ever seen, every innovative engineering solution he had encountered, Every crazy idea that had ever crossed his mind while working in his garage. "How much time do we have?" Marcus asked. Zephyr checked the countdown display. 5 hours and 37 minutes. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and grinned. "Then we better get started. I've got some ideas that are going to surprise everyone, including the Devourers." Outside the ship, Colonel Harrison was coordinating with his superiors, trying to explain a situation that defied all standard protocols. Inside the ship, a human mechanic and an alien guardian began the work of building Earth's first and possibly last line of defense against an enemy that had never been defeated. The fabrication chamber hummed with energy as Marcus and Zephyr worked together. Marcus had never experienced anything like the mental connection they shared. When he imagined a modification to the ship's systems, Zephyr could see the idea clearly and guide the liquid metal components to make it reality. The Devourers expect Guardian ships to fight in predictable patterns, Zephyr explained as the ship's hull began to reshape itself. "They have defeated us because they learn our tactics and adapt their countermeasures. But human creativity might give us the element of surprise we need." Marcus was thinking about asymmetric warfare, about how smaller forces had defeated larger ones throughout human history. What if we don't fight them ship to ship? What if we make them come to us on our terms? The ship's interior was transforming around them. New corridors formed while others sealed themselves closed. Weapon systems that Marcus could barely comprehend grew from the walls like technological flowers. But the most impressive change was in the ship's central core, where Zephyr's connection points were multiplying and evolving. "I'm going to need more processing power," Marcus realized. "The ideas I'm having are too complex for one Guardian to handle alone." Zephyr's skin shifted through several color patterns indicating deep thought. "There is a way, but it has never been attempted with a human. Guardian ships can network with each other, sharing processing power and tactical information, but humans are not biologically compatible with our systems." Marcus grinned. "Not biologically, but what about mechanically? You said Guardian technology responds to creativity and will. What if we build an interface that lets me connect to the ship's network without biological integration?" They worked for 2 hours on what Marcus privately called his creativity amplifier. Using human engineering principles combined with Guardian biotechnology, they created a headset that would allow Marcus to interface directly with the ship's systems. The device looked like a cross between a virtual reality headset and the most advanced computer interface ever built. Outside the ship, the military presence had grown significantly. Marcus could see through the ship's sensors that the area around his garage now resembled a forward operating base. Tanks, mobile command units, and personnel carriers surrounded the property. But Colonel Harrison had apparently convinced his superiors to let Marcus and Zephyr continue their work. 3 hours until the Devourers arrive, Zephyr announced. "The ship's transformation is 60% complete, but we need to test the new systems before they get here." Marcus put on the interface headset, and suddenly his consciousness expanded beyond his physical body. He could feel every system in the ship, every weapon, every sensor, every microscopic component. But more than that, he could feel Zephyr's mind connected to his own, their thoughts flowing together like two rivers joining into one. "This is incredible," Marcus said, his voice echoing strangely through the ship's communication system. "I can see everything. The enemy ships are still 3 hours away, but I can feel them coming through the quantum wake they're leaving in space." Through their shared connection, Marcus began implementing the defensive strategy he had been developing. The ship's weapon systems reconfigured themselves into patterns the Devourers had never seen before. Instead of energy beams designed for ship-to-ship combat, they created area effect fields that could disrupt multiple targets simultaneously. But the real innovation was in the ship's new ability to interface with Earth's existing technology. Marcus had realized that the planet's defense didn't have to rely solely on Guardian technology. Every satellite, every communication network, every connected device on Earth could become part of their defensive grid. "We're not just building a spaceship," Marcus explained to Zephyr as they worked. "We're building a command center that can coordinate Earth's entire technological infrastructure as a single defensive system." Zephyr's amazement flowed through their bond. "This is why the Guardians sought human partnership. We never considered using primitive technology as part of our advanced systems, but your approach could multiply our defensive capabilities 1,000-fold. The ship's exterior had completely transformed. What had been a simple scout vessel now looked like something from humanity's wildest science fiction dreams. Angular surfaces reflected light in patterns that seemed to shift and move on their own. Weapon ports appeared and disappeared as needed, and the entire hull seemed to be alive with energy. Colonel Harrison's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Marcus, we need to talk. Our long-range sensors are picking up the incoming vessels, and Washington wants to know what our defensive options are." Marcus looked at Zephyr, who nodded encouragingly. They walked to the ship's entrance, where a crowd of military personnel and scientists had gathered. Marcus noticed that some of the scientists were looking at portable displays showing readings from the ship's transformation. "The energy signatures we're detecting are unlike anything in our theoretical models," one of the scientists reported to Colonel Harrison. "Whatever they're building in there, it's operating on principles we don't understand." Marcus stepped forward, still wearing the interface headset. "Colonel, I need to coordinate with every major technological system on Earth. Satellite networks, power grids, communication systems, even the internet itself. Can you make that happen?" Colonel Harrison stared at him. "You're asking for access to critical infrastructure systems. Even if I wanted to authorize that, it would take hours to get approval from multiple agencies." "We have 2 hours and 15 minutes before the Devourers arrive," Marcus replied. "If we wait for bureaucratic approval, Earth is going to fall without firing a shot." Zephyr stepped forward and activated the holographic display again. This time it showed a detailed tactical analysis of the approaching enemy fleet. 12 ships, each one the size of a city, equipped with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. "The Devourers have never been defeated in direct combat," Zephyr announced. "Every world they have attacked has fallen within hours. Earth's only chance is to present them with a form of resistance they have never encountered before." Colonel Harrison spoke into his radio for several minutes, having what sounded like an intense conversation with his superiors. Finally, he looked back at Marcus and Zephyr. "I'm authorized to give you limited access to certain systems," he said. "But if this goes wrong, it's on both of our heads." Marcus grinned and adjusted his interface headset. "Colonel, if this goes wrong, we'll all be dead anyway. So let's make sure it goes right." For the next hour, Marcus worked with technicians from multiple agencies to establish connections between the Guardian ship and Earth's major technological networks. The process was like performing surgery on the planet's nervous system, carefully integrating alien technology with human infrastructure. As each connection came online, Marcus could feel Earth's technological presence through his link with Zephyr. Millions of devices, billions of connections, all waiting to be coordinated into a single defensive network. It was overwhelming and exhilarating at the same time. 1 hour until the Devourers arrive, Zephyr announced. "All systems are ready for final testing." Marcus looked around at the military personnel and scientists who had gathered to watch. These people had no idea what they were about to witness, but they were about to see humanity's first real chance of surviving an alien invasion. "Everyone might want to step back," Marcus said. "We're about to find out if human creativity and Guardian technology can save the world." The moment of truth had arrived. Marcus stood in the transformed Guardian ship. His consciousness expanded through the interface headset to encompass Earth's entire technological network. Through his connection with Zephyr, he could feel the approaching Devourer fleet like a dark storm on the edge of perception. 30 minutes until contact," Zephyr announced, the alien's voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were facing. "The Devourers are beginning their final approach. They're not attempting to hide their presence." Marcus could see why through the ship's advanced sensors. The Devourer fleet was massive beyond anything Earth's military could have imagined. 12 ships, each 1 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their superiority. They're not expecting any real resistance, Marcus realized. They think this is going to be easy. Through the quantum communication link, Marcus coordinated with military commanders around the world. The plan they had developed was unlike anything in human military history. Instead of trying to fight the alien invaders with conventional weapons, they were going to use Earth's entire technological infrastructure as a single, coordinated defensive system. "All satellite networks are online and ready," reported Colonel Harrison, who had become the primary liaison between the Guardian ship and Earth's military forces. "We've got communication satellites, GPS networks, weather monitoring systems, Even commercial satellites all tied into your control network. Marcus nodded, his enhanced perception allowing him to monitor hundreds of systems simultaneously. Power grids are responding well. We've got everything from nuclear power plants to solar farms ready to channel energy through the distribution network. The internet backbone is solid, and we're getting cooperation from every major telecommunications company on the planet, but the most innovative part of their defense was something that Marcus had thought of during his years of working on increasingly computerized vehicles. Modern cars, trucks, and machinery were all connected to networks for diagnostics and updates. If they could coordinate those systems as well, they would have millions of mobile defensive nodes spread across the planet. Zephyr, how are the interface protocols holding up? Marcus asked through their mental link. Better than I had hoped, the Guardian replied. Human technology is far more adaptable than we expected. Your devices are actually learning to communicate with our systems in real time. The transformation was visible from orbit. Earth's entire night side was beginning to glow as power grids synchronized their output. Satellite dishes around the world turned toward the approaching fleet, while communication towers pulsed with coordinated signals. Even individual cell phones and computers were contributing their processing power to the collective defense network. 15 minutes to contact, Zephyr announced. The Devourers are breaking formation. They're beginning to spread out for planetary bombardment. Marcus could see the enemy strategy through the ship's sensors. The Devourers plan to surround Earth and attack from multiple directions simultaneously, overwhelming any centralized defense. It was a strategy that had worked on every world they had conquered, but Earth was not like the other worlds. The Devourers had never encountered a planet where the entire technological infrastructure could be coordinated as a single defensive system. All units, this is Guardian Control, Marcus announced through the global communication network. Initialize defensive protocol in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, execute. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Every satellite in Earth orbit began broadcasting a coordinated interference pattern that disrupted the Devourer ship's targeting systems. Power grids around the world synchronized to create massive electromagnetic pulses that reached into space. The internet itself became a weapon as millions of connected devices generated coordinated jamming signals, but the most impressive part of the defense was what Marcus called the reflection protocol. Using the mathematical principles he had learned from repairing curved automotive mirrors, he had programmed Earth's satellite network to create a massive focusing array. Solar energy, radio waves, even cosmic radiation were being collected and reflected back at the Devourer fleet. Their shields are adapting, Zephyr warned. The Devourers are analyzing our attack patterns and adjusting their defenses. Marcus had expected this. The Devourers' greatest strength was their ability to adapt to any form of attack they had seen before. But human creativity meant that Earth's defense could evolve faster than the enemy could adapt. Phase 2, Marcus announced. Chaos Protocol. Instead of maintaining the coordinated patterns that the Devourers were learning to counter, Marcus switched to randomized, unpredictable attacks. Every device on Earth began operating according to algorithms that even Marcus could not predict. The result was technological chaos that somehow achieved perfect coordination. Streetlights flickered in patterns that created interference with the enemy ship's sensors. Car engines revved in sequence to generate acoustic disruption. Even home appliances contributed to the defense as refrigerators, televisions, and computers all became part of the unpredictable defensive network. The Devourer fleet began to falter. Ships that had conquered entire star systems found themselves unable to target a single planet effectively. Their weapons fired at empty space where Earth's defenses had been moments before, while return fire came from directions they had not expected. Impossible, came a transmission from the lead Devourer ship, translated through Guardian communication protocols. This level of technological coordination should not be possible for a primitive species. Marcus grinned as he prepared the final phase of Earth's defense. That's the thing about humans, he said, knowing the Devourers could hear him through their captured communication systems. We don't like being told what's impossible. Coup de grace was something Marcus called the mechanics special. Every piece of human technology on Earth simultaneously executed a coordinated overload sequence. For exactly 30 seconds, every device on the planet operated beyond its design specifications. channeling power and data at levels that should have been destructive. The result was a pulse of energy and information that reached across space to the Devourer fleet. But instead of trying to damage the enemy ships directly, the pulse carried something far more dangerous: human creativity itself. The Devourer ships began to change. Their perfectly ordered systems started generating random patterns. Their weapons fired in artistic arrangements rather than tactical ones. Their navigation systems began exploring space for the beauty of the journey rather than the efficiency of the destination. "What have you done to us?" came another transmission from the Devourer fleet, but this time the voice carried wonder instead of anger. "We shared something with you," Marcus replied, "something you've been consuming from other worlds but never truly understanding. We gave you the ability to create instead of just destroy." The Devourer ships were transforming before Earth sensors. Weapons became art installations. Hull plating rearranged itself into beautiful geometric patterns. Engine signatures shifted from efficient plasma streams to colorful displays that served no purpose, except to be magnificent. "The Devourers are withdrawing," Zephyr announced, amazement clear in the alien's mental voice. "But they're not fleeing. They're exploring. They're creating things I've never seen before." Marcus removed his interface headset and looked around the Guardian ship. The battle was over, but more than that, the war between the Guardians and the Devourers might be over as well. Earth had not defeated the enemy through superior firepower or advanced technology. They had won by giving their attackers something they had never possessed: the ability to imagine something new. "Colonel Harrison," Marcus called through the communication system, "you can stand down the alert. The invasion is over." "What about the alien ships?" Colonel Harrison replied. Marcus looked at Zephyr, who was monitoring the departing Devourer fleet. "They're not invaders anymore. They're artists." The days following the Devourer encounter changed everything for Marcus and for Earth itself. The small garage in the middle of nowhere had become the center of the most significant event in human history. News crews, scientists, and government officials from around the world descended on the property, all wanting to understand how a mechanic had saved the planet. Marcus stood in his garage, looking at the tools he had used just a week earlier to repair ordinary cars and trucks. Now those same hands had interfaced with technology beyond human understanding and coordinated the defense of an entire world. The transition back to normal life seemed impossible. Zephyr had remained on Earth, the Guardian ship now serving as a permanent embassy between humanity and the greater galactic community. The alien had adapted well to Earth customs, though it still required the specialized chamber in the ship for extended rest periods. "The Guardian Council has sent their formal response," Zephyr announced as it entered the garage. The alien had learned to walk more naturally in Earth's gravity, though its 4 arms still drew stares from visitors. Marcus looked up from the engine he was pretending to work on. "What did they say?" "They are concerned," Zephyr replied. Its skin shifting through patterns that Marcus had learned indicated careful consideration. The transformation of the Devourers was unprecedented. Some council members believe that humans are too unpredictable to be trusted with Guardian technology. Marcus set down his wrench and turned to face his alien partner. "And what do you think?" "I think they are afraid," Zephyr said simply. "For thousands of years, the Guardians have fought the Devourers with discipline, strategy, and advanced technology. We have been losing slowly but steadily. Then a human mechanic defeats them in a single battle using creativity and chaos. It challenges everything the Council believes about warfare and defense." Through the garage windows, Marcus could see the constant activity that now surrounded his property. Scientists were studying the energy patterns left by the planetary defense network. Military officials were trying to understand how Earth's infrastructure had been coordinated so effectively. And politicians were debating what humanity's role should be in galactic affairs. "There's something else," Zephyr continued. "Reports are coming in from across the galaxy. The transformed Devourers are spreading creativity wherever they go. Worlds that were scheduled for consumption are instead being gifted with art, music, and technological innovations. The entire balance of galactic civilization is shifting." Marcus had been expecting this. Creativity was infectious, especially when combined with the Devourers' ability to adapt and spread. What had started as Earth's desperate defense was becoming a galactic transformation. "Some species are calling it the Great Awakening," Zephyr explained. "Others are calling it the Chaos Plague. The Guardian Council wants to know if humans can control what they have started." Marcus laughed, surprising Zephyr with the sound. Control creativity? That's like trying to control the weather or the direction of the wind. The whole point of human innovation is that it's unpredictable. A knock on the garage door interrupted their conversation. Colonel Harrison entered, followed by a woman in a business suit whom Marcus did not recognize. Marcus, this is Director Chen from the Department of Extraterrestrial Affairs, Colonel Harrison said. She has a proposal for you. Director Chen stepped forward, her expression serious but not unfriendly. Mr. Webb, the President has asked me to offer you a position as Earth's first human guardian liaison. The world needs someone who can bridge the gap between human creativity and alien technology. Marcus looked around his garage, thinking about the life he had built here. 3 generations of his family had worked in this building, fixing things that were broken and helping people get back on the road. It was simple, honest work that had prepared him for the most important repair job in human history. What would the job involve? Marcus asked. Working with Zephyr and other Guardian representatives to establish protocols for human participation in galactic affairs. Director Chen explained, training other humans to interface with Guardian technology, and most importantly, helping to manage the creative revolution that's spreading across the galaxy. Marcus turned to Zephyr. What do you think? Are you willing to work with more humans? Zephyr's skin brightened with patterns that indicated enthusiasm. The Guardian Council may be concerned about human unpredictability, but I have seen its benefits firsthand. Yes, I would welcome the opportunity to work with more of your species. There's one condition, Marcus said to Director Chen. I keep my garage. Whatever official position you want to give me, I'm still a mechanic at heart. This place stays operational for anyone who needs their car fixed. Director Chen smiled for the first time since entering the garage. I think that can be arranged. In fact, it might be exactly what we need. A place where alien ambassadors can come to see how humans solve practical problems. Over the following weeks, Marcus began his new role while maintaining his old one. The garage became an unofficial meeting place where human engineers, alien diplomats, and curious visitors could observe the intersection of practical problem-solving and advanced technology. Zephyr proved to be an excellent teacher, helping humans understand Guardian principles while learning human approaches to engineering and creativity. The partnership that had saved Earth was evolving into something that could benefit the entire galaxy. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. The transformed Devourers, now calling themselves the Creators, sent a delegation to Earth. Their ships arrived not as invaders but as students, wanting to learn more about the creativity that had changed their entire species. Marcus found himself in the surreal position of teaching former galactic conquerors how to fix cars. The Creators were fascinated by human approaches to problem-solving, especially the willingness to try solutions that had no guarantee of success. You attempt repairs without knowing if they will work, observed the lead creator, a being that looked like it was made of crystallized starlight. This seems inefficient. Marcus was replacing the alternator in an old pickup truck while the alien delegation watched. Sometimes the only way to know if something will work is to try it. And even if it doesn't work the way you planned, you usually learn something that helps with the next attempt. The creator studied the truck's engine with sensors that extended from its crystalline body. This vehicle is ancient by galactic standards, yet you continue to maintain its function. Why not simply construct a new one? Marcus grinned as he tightened the alternator belt. Because this one has character. It's been fixed and modified so many times that it's become something unique. No factory could build another one exactly like it. The concept seemed to fascinate the former Devourers. They had spent millennia consuming the best technology from conquered worlds, but they had never considered the value of something that was imperfect, but unique. We understand now why the Guardian bond worked so well between you and Zephyr, the creator said. Humans do not seek perfection. You seek possibility. Marcus started the truck's engine, smiling as it rumbled to life with its characteristic rough idle. Perfection is boring. Possibility is where all the interesting stuff happens. 6 months after the day that changed everything, Marcus stood in his garage watching the most unusual repair project of his career. A creator ship had developed what its pilot called aesthetic dysfunction, and rather than seeking help from advanced alien engineers, it had come to Earth specifically to ask a human mechanic for assistance. The ship itself was a work of art, its hull covered in patterns that shifted like aurora in the night sky. But according to its pilot, the patterns had become too orderly, too predictable. The former devourer wanted its ship to surprise it again. The harmonics are mathematically perfect, the creator explained, its crystalline form reflecting the workshop lights in rainbow patterns. But perfection has become boring. Marcus nodded as he studied the ship's aesthetic systems through his enhanced interface headset. The technology was far beyond anything Earth had produced, but the problem was fundamentally human, the need for novelty and surprise. What you need is controlled chaos, Marcus said, making adjustments to the ship's pattern generators. Enough randomness to keep things interesting, but not so much that it becomes completely unpredictable. Zephyr watched the repair process with obvious amusement. The Guardian had become something of a celebrity on Earth, though it seemed to prefer the quiet environment of the garage to the media attention elsewhere. You realize what you have accomplished? Zephyr asked Marcus through their mental link. You are teaching former galactic conquerors to appreciate imperfection. The Guardian Council is still trying to understand the implications. Marcus grinned as he fine-tuned the ship's creative subroutines. Sometimes the best repairs are the ones that make things work differently, not just better. The creator ship's hull pattern suddenly shifted, becoming a flowing display of colors and shapes that was beautiful, precisely because it was slightly unpredictable. The pilot made a sound that Marcus had learned was the creator equivalent of laughter. Perfect imperfection, the creator said. This is why humans have become so valuable to galactic civilization. You understand that functionality and beauty can coexist with surprise. Through the garage windows, Marcus could see the signs of how much Earth had changed. The sky regularly showed the trails of ships arriving from across the galaxy, not as invaders or conquerors, but as visitors seeking to understand human creativity. The small town that had once been Marcus's quiet home had become an unlikely hub of interspecies cooperation. Director Chen had kept her promise about letting Marcus maintain his garage, but she had also convinced him to establish what was now called the Human Creativity Institute. The facility, built adjacent to his original garage, served as a training center where humans learned to work with alien technology, while aliens learned human approaches to problem-solving. Marcus, Zephyr said aloud, getting his attention, there is something I need to tell you. The Guardian Council has made a decision about Earth's role in galactic affairs. Marcus set down his tools and turned to face his alien partner. Over the months, he had learned to read Zephyr's moods through the color patterns in its metallic skin. Right now, those patterns indicated a mixture of pride and concern. What kind of decision? Marcus asked. They want to offer humanity full membership in the Guardian Alliance, Zephyr explained. Not as junior partners or probationary members, but as equals. It would give Earth a voice in galactic governance and access to Guardian technology and resources. Marcus considered this development. That sounds like a good thing. What's the catch? The catch is responsibility, Zephyr replied. Guardians are peacekeepers, protectors of worlds that cannot defend themselves. If humanity accepts membership, Earth would be obligated to help defend other planets from threats we have not yet encountered. The creator pilot, who had been listening to the conversation, interjected with a harmonic sound that conveyed agreement. The galaxy has many dangers beyond the former devourers. There are species that seek to exploit the creative revolution for destructive purposes, and others who see the spread of chaos as a threat to be eliminated. Marcus walked outside the garage and looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond Earth's atmosphere, the transformed devourer fleets were spreading creativity across the galaxy. Other species were learning to see beauty and imperfection and possibility in the unknown. But change always brought resistance, and humanity's gift to the galaxy was also creating new conflicts. What do you think, Zephyr? Marcus asked. Are humans ready for that kind of responsibility? I think, Zephyr said slowly, that humanity has already taken on that responsibility whether it is official or not. The creative revolution began here, and the galaxy is looking to Earth for guidance on how to manage it. Marcus thought about his conversation with the creator pilot, about the dozens of species that had visited Earth seeking to understand human approaches to innovation and problem-solving. Earth was already influencing galactic civilization in ways that no one had anticipated. All right, Marcus said finally, but I have a condition. What condition? Zephyr asked. The Guardian Alliance has to understand that humans work differently than other species. We don't follow rigid protocols or predetermined strategies. If they want our creativity, they have to accept our chaos. Zephyr's skin brightened with patterns that indicated deep satisfaction. I believe that is exactly what the galaxy needs to hear. The formal ceremony took place 3 weeks later, broadcast across Earth and transmitted to Guardian facilities throughout the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species attended, including a delegation of creators who had traveled from the far side of the galaxy to witness humanity's acceptance into the galactic community. Marcus stood on the stage wearing his best work shirt, which still had grease stains despite his attempts to clean it. Next to him, Zephyr had adopted a formal posture that somehow managed to convey both dignity and warmth. Today marks the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization, announced the Guardian Council spokesperson, a being that looked like a living constellation. For the first time in our recorded history, the Alliance welcomes a species not for their technology or military might, but for their ability to imagine what has never existed before. Marcus stepped forward to accept the formal documents that would make Earth a guardian world. But instead of a traditional acceptance speech, he said something that surprised everyone present. "We're honored to join the Guardian Alliance," Marcus said. "But I want everyone to understand something. Humans aren't going to solve the galaxy's problems by being more like other species. We're going to solve them by being exactly what we are: unpredictable, creative, and willing to try things that might not work." The creator delegation responded with harmonic sounds that translated as approval and excitement. The Guardian Council members showed various species-specific signs of agreement, though Marcus suspected some of them were still concerned about what they had just committed to. As the ceremony concluded and the various delegates began to depart, Marcus found himself back in his garage with Zephyr. The alien was reviewing reports from across the galaxy, monitoring the continuing effects of the creative revolution that had started with a simple repair to a damaged cable. "Any regrets?" Zephyr asked. Marcus looked around his garage, thinking about the journey from small-town mechanic to galactic diplomat. "None at all. Though I have to admit, I never expected fixing your ship would lead to all this." "Perhaps that is the most human trait of all," Zephyr observed. "The willingness to begin a task without knowing where it will lead." Marcus picked up his tools and approached a car that had been waiting for repair since before the aliens arrived. "Speaking of which, I've got work to do. Mrs. Henderson's sedan has been making a strange noise, and I promised her I'd figure out what's wrong with it." Zephyr watched as Marcus began his diagnostic routine, the same careful attention to detail that had saved Earth, applied to a mundane automotive problem. "And after you repair Mrs. Henderson's sedan?" Marcus grinned as he opened the car's hood. "Then I'll probably find something else that needs fixing. That's what mechanics do." Outside the garage, ships from across the galaxy continued to arrive and depart, carrying the message of human creativity to worlds that had never imagined the possibility of controlled chaos. But inside the garage, a mechanic worked on a broken car with the same dedication he had shown when repairing the ship that saved his world. Some things, Marcus reflected as he traced a faulty wire, never needed to change. The best repairs were still about understanding what was broken and figuring out how to make it work again. Whether the technology was human or alien, simple or complex, the principles remained the same. Fix what's broken, make it better if possible, and always be ready for the next challenge. The galaxy had learned to appreciate that philosophy, and Marcus suspected that was just the beginning of what humans had to teach the universe about the value of imperfection and the beauty of possibility.